The gospel eventually reached Rome, which was the epicenter of the greatest empire in the world at the time. What happened here would have particular significance because what was decided in this city would be carried across Europe and the earth to its furthest outposts. So what did happen here? Christianity dropped into the midst of a city completely under the spell of Babylonian worship, and whose emperor was the current high priest of the mysteries. Not an easy beginning. The people of Rome were thoroughly indoctrinated with the habits, superstitions and traditions that had originated with Nimrod and Semiramis. To be honest, it was a cesspit. Therefore, it should come as no surprise to learn that Christians were bitterly persecuted by the Romans, who tolerated everyone except those who believed in Jesus. The claim that particularly infuriated Roman emperors was that Jesus was the way, the truth, and the life, and that no one comes to the Father except by me, as he said in John 4:16. This was a direct challenge to their position as gods. Christians utterly denied all pagan gods and refused to bow down to any of them, knowing that in doing so, they would be bowing down to demons and by proxy be bowing to Satan himself. This meant that whenever a tragedy occurred in Rome, Christians were made scapegoats, being blamed for bringing the wrath of the gods upon the people because of their unwillingness to sacrifice, appease, or pay tribute to them. Christians' unwillingness to bow to emperors as gods was also considered an act of sedition. The consequent brutality of the Roman Empire towards Christians has gone down in infamy. Once captured, Christians were thrown to lions for sport in colosseums, while the baying crowd watched them being torn limb from limb. They were dipped in oil and then set alight at the side of the roads to become living human torches. Another method of execution was being sewn into animal skins and then led to die at the fangs and claws of wild animals. Some were noted to have had crowns of metal nailed into their heads. The book of Hebrews in the Bible reports that some were placed inside a hollowed out tree and then sawn in half. These things illustrate the viciousness of Satan's hatred and retaliation towards God's people. Never underestimate just how much Satan despises a follower of God, or what he would do to us if he was in a position of power. Remember the golden rule: manipulation and deception while in a position of weakness, intimidation and violence while in a position of power. The ultimate aim is always dominance. And when Satan eventually has his way on this earth at the end of the age and reaches a position of power, the Bible tells us that there will be a great tribulation that the world has never seen before or will ever see again. It wasn't until Emperor Constantine, who signed the Edict of Milan in 312 AD, that allowed for the tolerance of Christianity, that the persecution really came to an end. Now, the world at large traditionally sees this as the best thing that could ever have happened to Christianity, but I'm going to suggest it wasn't. You see, while many believe this was the pivotal moment in Christian history that allowed it to settle and grow and to become the largest religion in the world, the evidence suggests that firstly, Constantine only legalized Christianity for political reasons, and that his own supposed conversion wasn't truly sincere. For example, there is evidence to show that Constantine still retained many elements of sun worship even after his supposed conversion, and that there have been reports of secret Vatican files that prove he kept his allegiance to the sun god. Coins carrying his image from this period continue to portray him as soli invicto commit, which means colleague of the invincible sun. Then there is the fact that he changed the traditional Sabbath day of God, which was Saturday, to the now generally accepted Sunday or Sun God Day. Constantine's personal life also reflected the theory that he hadn't ever truly converted to Christianity or understood its message. He became a cruel and dissolute monarch whose cruelty extended to members of his own family. He was also clearly corrupted by his fortune. If we judge the tree by its fruits, we would reasonably conclude that he remained untouched by the love of Christ until the end. The truth is that there was such uproar and division in the Roman Empire at the time that its unity was beginning to be threatened. If the unity of Rome was threatened, so was Constantine's grip on power. So politically speaking, it made sense to change tack from Plan B tactics, oppression, violence and persecution regarding the Christians, to Plan A tactics, which is manipulation and flattery. That's effectively what happened here. The persecution, if anything, was making the Christians stronger, so from Constantine onwards, the persecution and killing stopped, and instead Christian leaders were manipulated and lured with promises of wealth and power. Constantine basically appealed to the vanity and pride of the bishops of the time. He went on a charm offensive and bestowed a number of favours on the church. Instead of martyring bishops, he began to treat them as his political aides and gave them a say in his empire's political affairs. They were raised to a high rank and given a life of great opulence in the imperial city. Very naturally and predictably, signs of worldliness appeared amongst them, like pursuit of luxury and personal ambition. Error and corruption began entering the church, and a focus on wealth acquisition crept in. They forgot Jesus' pronouncement that his kingdom is not of this world in John 18:36, and soon became double-minded. One of the main reasons we should suspect Constantine never truly converted was that he failed to relinquish his inherited title of Supreme Pontiff or High Priest that had first been assumed by Julius Caesar. Constantine therefore remained the official earthly head of the mysteries throughout his life. It wasn't until 376 AD that the young Emperor Gratian became the first to refuse the position of Supreme Pontiff, considering it inconsistent with faith in Christ. In addition, he also legally abolished paganism in the empire at this time, although this abolition didn't extend to the city of Rome itself, where it was still rampant. In fact, Rome at this time was colloquially referred to as the sink of all superstitions. After Gratian refused the office of Supreme Pontiff or High Priest, it became vacant once more, and the links in the chain that had gone back to Nimrod were broken, but only for 2 years. It was soon reinstated to Damascus, the then Bishop of Rome, who had gained the position after much fighting and bloodshed with rivals. This position of Supreme Pontiff has been held by the Bishop of Rome ever since. The Bishop of Rome is better known today as the Pope, and therefore the Catholic Pope is still the head of the mysteries of Babylon and its pagan offshoots today. If we follow this to its logical conclusion, as shocking as this may sound, the Pope is therefore still the earthly head of Satan's system of worship. Stanley's History on page 40 says, "The popes filled the place of the vacant emperors at Rome, inheriting their power, their prestige, and their titles from paganism." Pope Damascus recognized the power inherent in his new title. He believed himself to be head over not just the Christian church, but also over the pagans in Rome. It meant complete authority and domination, both the secular and sacred under one system. How is the Roman Church to consolidate this rule over the pagans and the Christians under one system? They needed to somehow iron out the differences between the Babylonian system and the Christian system to create a unity between all peoples. and that meant compromise. What the Catholic Church did was consistently compromise the gospel message with pre-existing pagan beliefs and adapted it based on whatever form of Babylonian mysticism a culture held to. Now, compromising the truth with different types of lies is like mixing ice cream with different types of dirt. At the end of the day, all you're left with is dirt. So while the average historian will explain that from 378 AD onwards, within 50 years, the spread of Christianity had completely vanquished paganism in Rome, that's not what happened. Paganism had not vanished. At the beginning of the 5th century, it had simply been absorbed into Roman Catholicism, which now contained all manner of superstitious rites and ceremonies inherited from Babylon. Pagan doctrines, rites and symbols were incorporated into the church and merely covered with a facade of Christianity. It was this, and not an outpouring of the Spirit, that brought a multitude of pagan worshippers into the Church of Rome. Catholicism basically became paganism with a Christian mask.